exciting. Look at all these faces. I hardly know anybody here. Just a few of the older faces. I haven't sort of been down here for a while because we all know why. But it's great to see a good turnout. And how many new members have we got here? I mean in the last 12 months. Okay, all right, that's great. Welcome. I'm here tonight mainly to start right at the beginning because that's what I'm most familiar with. How to start, what to start with and what to do. What I've brought along tonight, I'll just run through them quickly so you'll get the idea of where I'm coming from. This one here is a leucoxylon, and that's 30 years old. And I grew that from a seed that I collected while I was living on a farm and planting tree plantations. That's how you start. That is how you start, okay, with the leucoxylon. This one here is Wisteria. I think it's raw purple, without looking at the label. And it's an air layer off a mature vine. Now this one is 1996, that was done. When we went to live down in Melbourne, we were in a windy place, and I come from the northeast of the state. And we don't get the winds that you get down here. And this and another big one took a tumble and lost a big branch off it. So it was sort of out of kilter anyway. So I did another air layer of this bonsai. So it was an air layer. This is an air layer off this one. And there's also been another air layer taken off this one. Very easy to do. It's not difficult. It's not complicated. And it works. This one is was done in 2019. So it shows you how far you can get if you take a mature section of a tree and do it. This strapping here, no, I didn't break the branch. It actually was like a bar. It was straight across and it sort of lost character doing that. So I did a very narrow wedge bend on it to bring it down and strap it down there. So it's come down from about here right down to there. And the reason I did a wedge on it was that this is so hard now, it is impossible to bend. Once you get up to this size, it's really impossible. With different wisteria, I've got just about all the wisteria you can get, the different species. And some of them are a lot more pliable than others, and there's even ones that are harder than these. So air layering, particularly with wisteria, if you air layer off a mature vine that's already flowered, you've got flowering happening straight away. This is flower bud, here, 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 and here. All flowers from 2019. This one, you all know what that is. It's a Acacia, and that's from tube stock. That one was done in 2014 from tube stock, and it's had a lot of cutbacks. I'm a big one on cutting back. And again, that's where it starts. It starts right there. That's just a little tube stock. A Kunzia that's been heavily wired, just to show you when you're starting young stock off. That's a 2017, and that one has been wired probably 5, maybe 7 times since then. This one was from nursery stock, very small crepe myrtle from nursery stock. And this one is 2007. That's how old that one is. Again, cut back very hard every year. It's already been pruned back for the year. When it starts to grow in the spring, the flower masses and the volume will be out here. It will just more than triple in size. So the cutting back is really necessary, otherwise you just end up with less ramification and just this broader, lanky growth. You've got to come right back and cut back to 2 buds. And again, this is where it all starts. That's a seed of another one that I have, and that one was started in 2017. So seed grown, wired quite a lot because they'll be very straight if you don't wire them, and cut back hard. Cut back to 2 buds on every little branch and branchlet. Okay. This one here is tube stock, Spatiulata Melaleuca. Great bark, love the bark on this one. And this is the same species. This is a cutting of this one. When I was pruning, I just tried some cuttings because I haven't seen this one in the nursery since, and I do like it. It ramifies really well. It handles the weather, hot, dry, cold, really well. It handles bonsai and root pruning well. So I tried a few in cuttings and they were a bit slow to start, but it's also been wired and it's allowed to grow free like that for the winter. Because it's so cold overnight up our way, I allow my eucalypts, that's a snow gum over there, to carry a lot of foliage. I find that they are far more energised going through the winter time with plenty of foliage. I've tried cutting back and it just seems to weaken the whole tree through the winter time. So I allow them to have a lot of foliage through the winter months. And this one here is a Gravellia. It had some lovely flowers on it, and of course they all died off and I had to cut them off, and the other ones haven't come on again yet. So again, that is tube stock, that one, and that's where it starts. Just like that. All of these plants have started like that, all seed, all air layer. This one, again, this is Cardiphylia, the Acacia, and that was started from tube stock as well. And the only reason it's right up here is it's been heavily wired from day one. And if you feel that bark, there is no way you're going to move anything there. It's like iron. It is so hard. So I'm big on wiring. I'm big on starting young and also cutting back very hard. So what I want to do tonight is cover how you go about it. You know, how do you start with all of this? Now there are two, for the tube stock, there are two distinct varieties when you get tube stock. You've got your seed grown, which is usually one solid stem growing straight up. You've got your cutting grown. Now your cutting grown, the giveaway is branching. And sometimes you can see a little dead twig where it's been cut back and grown as a cutting. The seed grown will always, just about 99% of the time, have the nabari right at the soil level. But sometimes with cuttings, your soil level can be anywhere. So never start wiring while it's in the tube like that. Investigate where the real nabari is and start pulling down until you find where the true level is. Now I haven't looked at this one. This is the first time I've come down and you can see what's happening here. I'm just about there. Okay, there's the nabari. That's at least 3 centimetres down. okay, on what was the tube stock. And it'll be the same with this one. Sometimes you can get them and it's not that far down, and other times you can go and think, oh Lordy lum, you know, where on earth is the beginning of this? This is not the best time of the year to be doing this, but having done a lot of natives, oh Lord, here we go. Okay. I think I'm nearly there. Yes, we're there. 4 centimetres down. So never wire what you think is a cutting until you've investigated where that nabari is. Because this wiring, if you start with tube stock, is the most important wiring you'll do on the tree if it retains that trunk. There is nothing more important than doing something with that at this stage. Now the reason I've got so many natives here tonight is that my exotics and European trees are all large trees now, and to show you how to begin from small and go through the stages, and I needed to bring what I could and what I had in cuttings, seed, tube stock, air layer, seed, to give you an idea of, you know, where I've come from with my bonsai. I've tried nursery stock and I've been successful with some of it, but what usually disappoints me is when you get into the pot and you start unravelling the roots, it can be an absolute nightmare. They can go down and then they can rise right back up again, and then they go round. And so to actually get a very nice nabari is really difficult with some stock. You're very lucky if you undo a plant, which I'll be doing with that one, which is a crepe myrtle, and this one down here, Chinese elm, and this one. You'd be very lucky if you get a nice rootstock. You just don't know until you unravel it. I can remember once I bought a lovely little tree, and I can't think what it was now, but I remember the result. And I got it out of the pot, and the roots were a nightmare. And I started detangling and chopping and detangling. I ended up with a stump, and I just threw the whole thing away. I couldn't get the roots to a point where I felt that I was happy with the way they were sitting. They were shooting up this way, they were angled right across, and I just kept cutting until the end I had nothing left, so I just tossed the whole lot. No, I didn't sort of go near nursery stock after that. I just started, knowing how fast that they can develop. I just started with my own ideas of small stock. Any questions at this point? I want you to ask questions about it. No, nothing, not a hand anywhere. Yes?
Yeah, how many plants would you have starting at seed and that at the moment? What numbers would you get up to, and what's your sort of success rate?
Oh, probably the seed rate is not as good as the cutting rate. I would say, you know, you're lucky if you get 75%. Look, it really depends. I can remember raising some Japanese pine seeds, and I got these little seedlings up, and it's the most amazing thing that I ever did, and it worked, and I couldn't believe it. I read it in a book written by a Japanese master, and the little seedlings came up, just about all of them. It was the right time, it was the right weather, and it was just the right mix. I think timing's got a lot to do with it, weather's got a lot to do with it, and the seed quality is the other thing too. If you collect it yourself and it's straight off the tree, well, you'll probably have it, and you do it at the right time and do all the right preparation, you'll probably have a good rate. But these little pines came up, little tiny things, and this master said, if you wait until, there's probably a few experienced people here know this, if you wait until that little stem, when it's just this little thing, you know, with these little sprouts at the top, if you wait till that stem is purple and cut all the roots off, and you just have a little bit of purple stem under that pine needle. And I thought, gee, that's drastic, how can that work, you know? And I did it, and it works. What happens is when the stem changes from that very pale green into that purpley colour, there's a transformation of hormones going on in that tiny little pine. And you cut all the roots off, and the idea of doing this is to bring the foliage very close down to the soil instead of having that great gap that you can often get with pines. And this little purple stem was put back into the mix and it shot roots. I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. Has anyone done this? Did it work for you?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? I was just totally thrown. I couldn't believe that a little seedling could do that. But so, you know, understanding all these little things, they come along, you experiment, you try different things, and you see what works and what doesn't. And it can be quite amazing at times.
Does it work with iceberg lettuces?
You can afford the seedling.
What, chop the whole thing off? I don't know. Why? Have you got some that aren't doing well?
Well, I've got some seeds in.
Right.
I've got a packet with 1,000 seeds, so it's worth $10,000.
Right, okay. Oh, well, yes. This year you could be onto it. That's right. Any other questions before we sort of move on?
When you trim those roots off the seedling, are you trimming them right back to the trunk?
Yes, you're taking all the roots off. Oh, we're talking about the little pines?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You've got this little bit of purple stem left, and you look at it thinking, how can this work?
That's what I'm thinking.
And it does. And because yes?
Just with the tube stock, how long do you wait before you start cutting back?
Oh, look, it depends on the tube stock. Like that will be wide and cut back now.
Right.
Okay? And it has to be wide now. You can't leave it until next year. You won't be able to move it. Okay? And that will have just a little cutback. Not much, particularly this time of the year. This one might not, the Acacia. It might just have the wire put on it. Things like this, yes, big cutback. Right back to 2 to 3 buds. Okay, and right back here and here. So that you get your primary branches starting to ramify right from the word go. Even though this one, it has the age that it has, it's only the hard cutting back that it's ramified to this point even. That is the only way you can get the ramification. And you've always got it, when you're new, when you're doing things and you're new, it's so hard to chop it all off. You know, you think, oh, it's taken all year or 2 years to get that. You have to bite the bullet and do it, and you learn that as you go along. Now, things like this one, this callistemon, I just picked that up because I saw the trunk, and then I saw the potential for taking it right back and starting taper already in it. But it's very light in the pot, and I'm a bit frightened about what I'm going to find when I go in there, but you know, we'll get into that. So, okay, and this one has got all this foliage on it because I don't want to cut it this time of the year. It has been wide probably 3 or 4 times, if not more. But these long branches, oh, that's another thing I saw today too when I was putting it in the car, and I thought, oh, well, I'll leave that to actually show you. top 3 branches here, can you all see these top 3 here? Can you see it? These 2 here, I wonder if I can hold something behind it. There are 2 branches almost opposite one another. Now one of those has got to go. That's bar branching, and we don't, that just is not comfortable to look at. It's out of balance, it will create a thick trunk in that area. So one of those branches has to go. And they've only really thickened up in the last couple of months. So the last time I took a good look at it, that really wasn't noticeable, but it is now.
You can always take out the centre, right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Okay, all right, so when you start wiring these little fellows,
When you were doing the wiring, the first wiring, do you have any plan in mind for the shape of the eventual tree, or is it just to put some movement into it?
look, I don't have any plan for a shape, mainly because you really don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what the tree is going to throw at you. So really, it's to concentrate, the wiring is specifically to concentrate on virtually that area there. I'm not going right through here at the moment. This is all very, very flexible at this stage, but this is tightening up. So I'm working on starting right from the base. To me, as you can see from my stock, which I think Jared said once, where's Jared? Said once that it might be my trademark, and I've always remembered you saying that, because I think you're right. But it's what I like to do, you know? It's the form I like to see in the tree. Trees like that, they're just, you're not going to get that unless it's wide at this stage, the base. All right, so if you don't want to do all the rest of the wiring, don't do it. But to get the interest in the tree, and as the tree develops, you get character forming in those twists and turns that sometimes you just don't see in a straight trunk or a straighter trunk. Okay, so the next thing to test is the resistance of that particular wood. There's a little bit of resistance there, and you've got to match the wire with the resistance that you feel. Now that's probably a bit too strong. That's I think that's a 2.5. I just don't know if that's strong. That's a 2.5. This is a 2. Okay, so I'm going to go with this and see where we go. So, now, this is the next most important thing. Don't do anything with the roots until you've put the wire in. So, as close to the trunk as possible. Hold with the pliers tight. Right up against the trunk. Hold with the pliers. Don't let that wire move. Once you're around twice, you're home and hosed. So we'll just take it up. You see a little old stem sitting out there. Don't cut right up close to a regrowth point or a join, because the bending could quite easily make it snap. We don't want that. I think our trees had a good summer this year, with the rain and the mild temperatures. I know mine did. A couple of summers ago, golly, I nearly lost all my maples. The roots actually cooked in the pot. And, you know, very mature maples with, you know, trunks bigger than that, not as big as that one, but big trunks. And they weren't doing too well, and I took them out of the pots, and the roots were just falling apart. And all I had left on one of them was a stump like that, and I thought, oh, this will surely die. So I put some potting mix and mainly chopped sphagnum, took it into the kitchen, put it in the Magimix, whipped it up, took it back out again, roots everywhere. Amazing. 2 years later. I didn't lose them, but they certainly suffered a lot. Okay, so wire is on, and the reason we've got a hole tight right down at the bottom is that you can so easily, particularly if that's been buried in the soil, all of that cambium layer is very soft and very fragile. So trying to tie it around by just holding it with your fingers, you're going to skewer it into the cambium and tear it. So this way, holding tight and turning, it will stop any of that happening. So now I look at the Nabari for any sign of a lean either way, this way or that way, and I don't see much there. So all I do now is in the direction that I've actually I'm listening for cracking, it's okay. In the direction that I've wired, I slightly twist as I go. Now this is a wattle, so it's pretty brittle. This is always a horrible part. I hate watching people do this. I get so anxious. Okay, I think we're about there. Okay. And then I'll look at it and I'll think, okay, righto, what am I going to do from here? Well, we'll probably just let that settle that way. And take it back to a downward pointing branch. That one can go because it's too close to the other one there. That will probably be the leader, so I'll just leave that one alone and just take off a bit more here, and the flower. Sorry about that. And at the moment, that's just a little soft to wire, but it could be wired. It could be. Now, just crossed my mind, another thing to think about when you're actually wiring a little tree. The first juniper, I always remember this, the first juniper I ever wired, I was so pleased with myself. I sat there and I wired it this way, and I go back this way, and across this way, and all the branches in the right place. And I finished the whole thing, and I turned it round to look at it, and as I turned it, everything was in a straight line. I thought, oh Lord, that looks awful. I hadn't used the 3D of the viewing of the tree. I'd just been fronting it and bending and turning and twisting, but I hadn't used a 3D dimension. I was just on a 2-dimensional plane. So be aware of that, because you know, when you move the tree around, it's got to have the movement from every plane and every viewing. And seeing as this is the start of the tree, this is the start of trees like this, it's important to get this part right, because you only get one go at it. You'll only get one go at this point of this tree's future. And you might look at it and say, oh God, it's just a tube stock. Yes, it is, but it has the potential to be something much more. And in 5 to 7 years, there isn't a big time frame of waiting. All right? Now with this fellow that's gone way, way, way down, what I might do is just even things up a little bit here. So we're obviously going to have a spread. So we're going to have a bushy tree here. We're going to have a spread of 3 or 4 trunks. Okay, much the same resistance there, not much different, probably a bit smaller in the trunk, but still important to do it. So we'll just do that one again. There's no incline this way or that on this little fellow. So down hard against the trunk. Hold tight, really tight. No movement there at all, just going around. 2 times round and you're done. Now with this little one you probably could wire these other little fellows. Now you could put a 1 on them or a 1.5. If you wanted them to flare right out, you could do that. Again, a twist. Now this one can really snap if it wants to. You get to know. You say, well, how do you know? Well, you just get to know. You know, you feel it. You feel the resistance, and you're thinking, well, you know, that's really starting to resist now. How much more am I going to push that?
When you do this at home, Annalea, do you do a whole batch of one species all at once, or do you...
No, look, you know, when I was doing a lot of small natives, you know, to get up to this size here, it was just a selection that I call into the nursery, and it was something there that I'd been looking for, or I might come home with half a dozen or a dozen, and I'll do them all, yes, they'll all be done. So there'll be a group coming on.
So when you've got a batch of all the same, you get a bit of a feel for...
You do, absolutely, you do, you know, and when you've done a few of the same variety anyway, you do get a feel for it. Okay, so I don't really want to push this one any harder. I can feel there's a lot of resistance, and they do have. Anyone who's worked with these calistans will know that they're great snappers, you know. They just tear the moment that you try and move them too much. But that's enough. By the time that develops, and it starts developing that bark, that rough bark look, that is enough just to start with. And while we're doing that, I'll just do this callistemon because these are very forgiving. These can really bend without, you know, too much problem at all. So we'll just give him a good going over. And you can see there's quite a lot of root there, and the nabari is right there. That bulge there is the nabari. Okay. So I'm going to stay with the same wire there because I can feel that it's probably going to be even easier than the last one. Now we've got a definite incline one way on this one. When you're putting the wire in, just make sure that it feels fairly secure where you go. That feels better there. Just try and get as many of the little needles out of the way as you can, because you don't know where your branches are going to come from. You don't, you know, so you're working a little bit blind, and that does worry some people. They want to be able to see where they're going. But you get used to it, and in a lot of ways it's sort of, well, I wonder what's going to happen here, you know, it's sort of interesting. Right there's a branch coming out there where I'm just up to now. Okay. good incline that way. So we want to bring that back and around. Slight twist happening here. Heading down, down, down. Or forward. Don't worry if it looks too much forward at this stage, because that will do a sharp turn again at some other stage. That's where your interesting trunk comes from. That's where it all happens. Even more so down. Okay.
How long do you leave that wire on for?
At this time of the year, it won't grow much, but normally I do this in spring, okay? And I've actually taken wire off in 3 to 4 weeks. It's been biting in 3 to 4 weeks. And I've reapplied the wire running in the different direction. Don't put your wire on running the same way. Cross it back the other way, okay? It gives that cambium time to heal where you were before. Otherwise you're running in the same lines and you're really cutting into it. So you crisscross. It will all come out eventually. You know, you don't have to worry that it's going to ruin it. It won't. So okay, get to this stage. Best tools for the job. 1 big fork. Best for little plants. Kitchen scissors, stay sharp so that you can keep it nice and sharp. And take off at least half, if not more, of the roots, and then just gently tease it out. And I can feel 2 tap roots here. So we've got lots of feeder roots, enough for this little guy. Look what else we've got. The tap roots. And they have to go. So, yeah, that's why. Okay, still plenty of feeder roots. No problems there for that little fellow. So where do we go from here? Orchid pots, my grower pots. Shade cloth to line it with. Best little grower pots that you can have. They've been an absolute godsend for people raising stock. And potting mix, something like this mix, which you can come up and have a look at later. It's got a bonsai basic mix that I use. I buy it from the nursery where I used to work. And I mix up different components for different plants. This one is specifically for young stock. It's got the basic bonsai mix, which is sharp quartz, fine pine bark and a bit of sand. Now I need the sand because it gets hot where I am, and the little ones just need a little bit more damp and moisture holding potential. Then I'll put in a bit of coir peat, again for moisture retention, some diatomite, and turface. That's the little orange speckly ones you can see there. I like turface. I like it because I get a very good root system with turface. Probably show you fairly good root structure. Let me see. Yes, this one. This one would have been in a very similar mixture. And it doesn't want to come out because it's, come on. It's really stuck in, isn't it? Okay. All right. That's what you're looking at when things are about ready for repotting with young stock. You're looking for that mass of healthy white roots, and as you can see, there's virtually no big roots there, and that's because this has been root pruned like that since it was a little tacker like that. So when you start combing this out, it's just so easy. You've just got fine feeder roots all the way around. The plant gets to know that this is the way it's going to grow, and it just reproduces those. Now this was done in, this would have been done probably in March, before winter. Some of the young ones get repotted twice a year. They get done in late spring, and if they've grown a lot and they're putting the roots through the bottom of the orchid pot, they'll get done again in March so that they get a little bit of autumn growth before the winter, and they can sit through winter. So that was the bottom of the pot, so that's what you're looking for, to have that sort of root mass ready for repotting again. But this one's going to have to sit and wait until spring, because I wouldn't do this one at this time of the year now that it's getting bigger. So basically, you know, that's the next stage. You'll go through pots that size, this size, and then probably into that one. And that's over a course of just a couple of years that you're actually getting to that stage. All right, now what do I do with the little pot? There we are. So, any questions?
Why wouldn't you go straight into a larger pot?
Oh, because the root development, it would, the time of the year, you've got it sitting in too much soil, it doesn't need it. I find particularly natives do better if they're more confined. They like to dry out, and you're not going to get the drying out process if you're in a bigger pot with all this room for roots to grow. There isn't going to be enough air because the soil isn't going to dry out. Keeping them more compact, they seem to like it, they do better. This one's also the same. This little Gravellia, I won't pull it out, but it's in the same state. You can see the roots coming through there, and it's firing. You know, I'm constantly cutting it back. It just is growing. You can see all that new growth, and our temperatures are down to -1, -2 at night, and yet it's still growing because it likes that condition.
How often are you root pruning?
Root pruning on the young ones, if they're repotted twice a year, they're root pruned. They're root pruned every time they're repotted. They're not slipped into the next pot. They're actually combed out and checked for any thick roots that may be starting to grow, checked for crossing roots, so that it's done every time.
And put back in the second pot?
Yeah, sometimes back in the same pot. Sometimes the growth is so vigorous and the tree is put on so much, even though it's been cut back, it may need to go to the next size.
So from the tube stock, what size orchid pot are you putting it into?
Okay, well, that's the second smallest, I think, you would call that one. There's one just a little bit smaller than that, and that's tiny. That is really too small. This size is about right.
Roughly how long would you leave that tube stock in there for?
Okay, well, if I was to do it at the right time, which would be spring, it could be showing a tightness of growth by that March.
And you repot that?
And then I'll repot it in March. I'll try and get it in before winter.
In a bigger pot or the same pot?
It depends on the roots. It depends really, and the growth. If the tree is growing in such a way that I need to cut it back very hard and there's not a lot of foliage, same pot. If I'm not cutting back hard but just wiring and there's still quite a bit of new growth, next size. It's all weighing up, you know, it's like making a cake. You'll weigh up, you know, does it need more of that, does it less of that, you know? And that just comes with watching the tree and watching how it handles, you know, being tight in a pot, having more room. But on the whole, I find tighter is better.
Annalea, when you're cutting back, do you ever leave any branching for sacrifice branches, anything like that?
I haven't done, no, I haven't. Because I cut back so much, I think that I get taper anyway. So there's not, I've never looked at anything and thought, oh, I need that for thickening, I need to leave that for thickening. Probably in some cases, yes, you might. You know, particularly if you've got maybe a red pine and you haven't got a lot of taper and you have got a low branch there, well, you would leave it. You would let it grow right out to get as much thickening down in the nabari and giving it more taper. You know, red pines are notorious for being fairly straight and without taper. But taper will come with cutting hard. It just... It has for all of my things, really. The taper has come with cutting back hard. Okay. All right. So we just spread a little bit there. Poor little size. Sorry about this. Terrible time of year to be doing it. I know. Okay. Just bring it just up to where we were with that nabari, and my bamboo sticks. Any roots, you know, that you saw that were sort of crossing over, just comb them out gently. At this stage, it doesn't take much to get the roots out and get them in a nice position. Whereas, you know, if it's left to its own devices, sometimes those roots can grow in such a mess. I know, you know, that in the wild and that, the trees still do all right, don't they? But then their roots can go anywhere they want to. In this case, they're so confined. And a good tamp down just to make sure it's gone right down and labelled. Okay, and that's your start for this.
So you're not signing with it at any stage, or what stage
No.
are you signing with?
No, there's not enough foliage to worry about tying in. It's only when you've got something like that that you might, depending on where the roots are. And I'm going to leave those to do later because we're not going to get through everything otherwise. I want to see what's in here. I'm a bit sort of keen to see what sort of a mess I've bought. Okay. Right. No, I don't want any of this down here. So I'm taking all that off.
You see you did put the shade cloth at the bottom of the pot.
Yep.
Does that block up? Because
Oh,
the
no.
holes are very small.
Oh no, not at all, no.
I suppose
The roots love it. They come out everywhere, you know.
is it a certain mesh or not? Because you get shade cloth from different meshes.
No, it doesn't matter. I've used all different, you know, 70, 90, 50. It doesn't matter, you know, because I've got all of those sizes up for various reasons. Right, so we've got a few toughies in there, which you can see. But we've also got a reasonable amount of feeders. I'll be taking quite a bit of this foliage off, so I'm not really worried. Every time I watered this, when I got it home a week ago, it felt very dry. And I did soak it, but it still had a dry spot. That's all nice and damp here, but this side hasn't become damp, all right? So it's another thing that you're just never sure of with potted plants. And I'm not knocking them completely, but that Nabari, I can't do anything with that now. That is set completely. So I've got to look at this and think, well, what can I do? And what I saw was, just take those lower ones off for now. I'll take them all off because it's got quite a little trunk on it. What I saw was being able to wire this very thick branch, it really gets the chop. Just to bring it back where the others are. What I saw was that. Because this is so straight, I thought, well, I can't do anything with that, but I can here. I can do something here, and I can slant this in the pot, and I can bring these right across and bushy them up. So we've got a conglomerate of roots down here. We've got these hard roots all twisting one another, and you can't leave them. And it was grown in one of those little cocoa tubes, which I can just feel there now. So these are the things you have to deal with if you're going to buy nursery stock. Got to untangle this now. If you don't do it now, it's going to be a nightmare in repotting time for the future of it, until one day you're going to have to do this massive root cutting. So what I'm trying to do is plane up all the heavier roots that were there underneath. Still plenty of fine feeder roots. There's the little pot that it was grown in. One of those little cocoa peaty things. It's wanting to put roots out there. Okay, so we've got a problem here. We've got all our roots coming from one side. Okay. This is what happened to me that time that I did the... You can see how it happens, can't you? You start unravelling the roots and you find that you've got everything on one side. So what we'll do is we'll just hope for the best, take a fair bit off, but not probably as much as you would. Seeing as I've taken a fair bit of foliage off, it most likely will be okay. Go for a lighter wire. Okay, so because I can't do anything with the base, I'll just wire these tips. When you're wiring to bring branches down, make sure you come underneath and support just where it's joining onto the trunk there, on the branch. Just to try and give it that little bit more support as you're bending. Going here so we can get this little fellow down enough.
Annalea, with the work that you've done there, the root work, you've probably set the tree back a little bit.
Yes.
You started off with tube stock. Your tube stock will catch up to that in 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, not even that long, Barry. It would catch up quite quickly. That's the difference. You know, I did this deliberately to see what would happen, and this is, I don't know what's under this crepe myrtle. Could be the same, it may be better, but you're really not that much further ahead. No, you're not, because you've got to deal with these unseen things.
And the tube stock, you'll choose the movement as well.
Yeah, that's right. You get to choose just about everything. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to give the thickest branch here a little more, keeping the wire up close to the first one. We don't want the wire all spread out. Keep it close there. And then into this fellow here. We're looking at that for now. Look, that might change, you know. The only thing set in concrete is this, really, down here. The rest of it, yeah, look, it might be able to change, but, you know, there's bits of the pot coming out here, and there's another thick root. Look where it's gone. You know, it's gone around there. And this is the thing that it's so hard with, if you're going to pick up nursery stock, you know, this is what can happen. So we'll deal with that later. Let's just see what's going to happen with this. Now, crepe myrtles are a different thing again. That's, no, I won't say it's better at this stage. It might be. It's pretty tough down there. Most of the crepe myrtles I've done, I've grown from my own cuttings, so I haven't had to go through this procedure. It's certainly a lot more sandy and a lot wetter, but there are some pretty tough roots there. And you can certainly do more earlier with a cutting grown one, as you can see with that one there. Now, we're right there already. Much denser, but again, roots sort of travelling in and out in every direction. Let's see what we've got. Always a bit keen to get into this bottom area, see what's going on. Can I feel there? Oof, okay. These are tough. crepe myrtles. For their soft, billowy flowers and everything, it's like wisteria. They're tough. No, don't be fooled. Okay, so we're a pretty mangly mess there of fairly thick roots. And they're going to have to go. You just can't leave that when you're trying to get decent roots. Some thick ones there. And I guess this little tree is probably about, from cutting ground, there's the telltale twig. What would it be, 3 years old? Nothing's ever happened down here until now. Now they're not very forgiving with wire. Push them too far and they'll kick back on you. Has anyone raised their own stock or anything, propagated cuttings, seeds? Right, okay. Cuttings, okay. And so where does your stock come from? Sorry? Where does his come from? He propagates, does he?
He grows, yeah, and probably blackberries at home, which are quite tall.
Okay.
Stock, so I'm sort of curious what to do with them.
Right. Yep.
I was given a pot with 3 different colours in one pot, 3 little plants by a neighbour.
All right.
I separated them.
Okay.
Each became an individual bonsai.
Right. Now, we've also got this commemoration happening here. We can't do anything with that, we've just got to take it off at this stage. Because it won't sit in the pot. There's not a bad sort of structure there. There's something that, could be happening there quite nice later on. We'll just sort of try and get it almost there for a pot. Now this will, as you can see, is a bit bigger, so it will go in the next size quite comfortably when I stop feeling all of these heavier roots under here. I won't take them all off because they can come off at another date as well. They're spread out a little bit, it's not too bad. All right. So with this one, I'd be thinking, okay, thin branch there, I might, no I won't, I'll take it back to there. And it gives you little buds, you can see little buds. It's got a straight plane there, so we're going to have to do something about that. If I cut there, it branches out this way, which will give us more 3 dimension. So, there we are. There's no movement in that, none at all. So, to get an interesting 3D plane on this, you're going to be looking at where your buds are, where they're going to come out, and the branches you're going to work with when they come out. Okay, so it doesn't look much now, does it? But, don't be despondent about it, because you'd be amazed, how fast they take off when they're being looked after and they're getting all of the right treatment.
That's a crepe myrtle now.
It is a crepe.
So, but you would treat a maple or an elm exactly the same way this time of
Yeah,
year?
absolutely. So that will go in the bigger pot because it'll just be too much of a squash in the little one. And I probably won't put it as deep. I do wish they would make some of these a little bit lower. What I actually do because I cut them down myself. That is actually a pot that's that tall. And I cut it down, and then I sink the top down around to give it a firm top, and I just anchor it with wire clip things.
I didn't recognise the pot.
Yeah. To get a wider pot, but more shallow. And I find I need that size. That one's in it too. The same thing. But I don't need the depth. I want the width, but not the depth. But they are orchid pots after all. They're not bonsai pots. We have to work with what we've given. Again. And for doing them this time of the year, like you wouldn't normally, honestly you wouldn't. I'll just give that a bit of a lean in the direction.
Annalea, what are you saying you wouldn't do this time of year, spray myrtles?
I wouldn't do that.
Oh.
I wouldn't do the repotting. I do the cutback.
Well, why not the repotting?
Because I feel it'll just be sitting too long. If we get a wet winter, you know, and they're talking about La Nina reforming again in spring. Like I wouldn't do my natives normally until late September, October would be the earliest I would start.
But so deciduous trees, at least for us in Melbourne, we're not going to get those cold nights that you get consistently. I pretty much potted all night.
Yeah, well I did when we were living the 9 years we were down in Melbourne. I had to readjust down there because I found the same thing. They didn't suffer. You know, they definitely shut down more so when you get down to 1, 2, -1. I mean, you know, it's not as bad as Canberra. Heavens, they had -6 a couple of weeks ago. Lord, you know, that is cold. But I wouldn't do it where I am now with the cold temperatures because it just won't form the roots. It'll be sitting wet and cold for too long. Do the pruning for sure and wiring if you can wire it, but not the repot. Okay. Particularly on a young one. The older, more mature trees, even my tridents, I'll probably do those in a few weeks' time. They're more robust. They've got a lot bigger root system. They're not going to go into a grower pot. They're going into their bonsai pot. They're in their bonsai pot. So, you know, they're not going into this vast area after being all pruned like these little fellows are.
Annalea, how long would you keep them in a grower pot for?
Oh, look, I can go 5 years. 5 to 7 years. I'll look at a tree and think, like that snow go over there, I'm not sure if I'll put that in a grower pot this year, or in a bonsai pot this year. I might keep it in a grower pot another round, another year, and hope that I'm still around to put it in a bonsai pot at some time. But I just look at the tree and I just think, is it ready? This one only went in this spring. That's the first time. Up until then, like it was started in 2015 as a bonsai, having, you know, being in a situation of a grower pot, but very tight, roots pruned twice a year, and pruned, branches pruned probably 3 times throughout the year, but that's its first year. So that's 7 years. First year in. And I find that, you know, they take a bit of adjusting. You know, the grower pots allow so much more air and drying out quicker, and then holding the moisture, drying out quick, and they seem to like that, and the tightness of it. And I find when they go into a bonsai pot, they do a bit of a check for a year or two, and they just sort of think, this is different, and then they start to move on after that. So it's just the look of the plant, how it's been going, what its roots look like when it's taken out. It's just an eye judgment, really, just a feel, you know, for it. And there's your new little crepe myrtle starting all over again. Now that one, that was seed grown of another one that I've got at home, which is a real dwarf, but I think it's crossed with the others. I don't know whether they can do that. Can they cross and sort of become another hybrid or something? But that was wide, very young, and that's the only reason that I got that sort of movement there. It also had 2 trucks, and I didn't know which way I was going to go. I left both of them because I didn't know the form that both of them were going to give me. And I think it was last year I decided to go with this side. So I've had to cut out that area there. But don't be worried about that. You won't even notice that in 4 or 5 years. That'll be completely gone. If you have a look at this one, that there was a big branch cut out. They just sealed right over. All of these little dimples are where branches were cut off, and the crepe myrtle just seals beautifully. So you don't see even where big branches were taken off eventually. But I seal all of my plants. I always have. I like cut paste for anything up to 1.5 centimetres. Once I get into big cuts like these were, I use the Japanese more liquidy one in the tin tube, not the one in the plastic tube. There's one came out because of the lack of supplies, I think, through COVID, in the plastic tube. And I don't know whether it was Chinese or not. And I used it, and I tell you what, I didn't like what it did to the cuts. Did you find that? Has anyone used it?
Oh, I used both. I didn't find any real trouble. I think the one you like is Cayenne. That's the one.
Yes, yes, yeah. But the other one in a plastic tube, bright green plastic tube, I wasn't happy with the way the cuts were healing on that at all. And I actually went and put it on all the fruit trees when I pruned them to get rid of it, because I didn't like it. The cuts, the cambium wasn't healing evenly. It was all bubbly all the way around, and I thought, no, I've had to redo a whole lot of cuts because of that. Okay, where am I? I'm up to a Chinese elm.
Annalea, just before you do that,
yes,
the yellow little eucalypt that you've got in
yes,
the tube stock there, were you planning, would that be the same process as to the other ones you
yes,
demonstrated, so there's no difference based on the fact it's eucalypt?
No, no difference at all.
Okay.
It's seed grown. You can see the little bulge there, where it's come straight out of the seed pod and forming its the usual bulges and everything that the eucalypts do. That's the Angophora costata, like Ted's pointings in the Arboretum. Anyone seen the Ted's in the Arboretum? Yeah, beautiful plant. That's it, the costata there. The only, why I've bought native tubes mostly tonight is because there's not much else around in small stuff at the moment. There will be in spring. You'll be able to get more camellias and things like that in spring. And there's no reason why you can't do this exactly the same. Probably be a little more careful with the roots as you're going. I don't know what state these roots are in. Oh, it's a fair bit at the bottom. But a little more delicate going with that. And I don't know whether that looks like it was seed grown, because I can't see any telltale area. And again, it's been planted well down in the pot. Yeah. Okay. So there's its beginning down there. That's where it's come out of the seed pod, right here. And so you would do the same process with that one. Fair bit of flexibility in that. It's not, yeah, you could really get quite a bit of movement into that and around. Different roots again. Just be a little bit careful, particularly this time of the year, with doing something like that, but certainly can be done. Put some, if you want to, where was its little pot thing? It's a different size. Here we go. If you want to put it back in the pot while you're wiring, just put some extra soil in the bottom and pop it back in the pot after you've revealed where you're going to start from to get going. That's that one. Okay. Now, Chinese elm. Most of us, I think, start with something like this. We've got some pretty thick roots happening there. Gee, what's that I can feel there? Crikey. There's going to be long winding roots come out of this. Probably, you know, try and start with something. You can't get much smaller than that though, can you really? Unless you're propagating it yourself. Okay. Nice little foot there though. Yeah. If we can sort out the roots a little bit. Because what we've got happening here is one big one. And one crossing. So, something like that, where you can see that root crossing over the big one. It's best to do something with that now. Don't leave it, because it's only going to get harder to work with. If you can release it, bring it across here, and often I will get a little flat stone and I'll just wedge it down in there, which I don't have on me at the moment. There's nothing big enough in there. This is not potting mix for big things.
Like a hairpin.
Yeah, a hairpin, a bent over bit of wire, anything to just bring that and wedge it down in there. It makes a lot more pleasing root system, because we've got one that's going back here, we've got one that's coming back here, we've got this big thing down here. That can't stay. So we'll take it off as close as we can to a finer one coming off that same section. Once you start getting some size on the elm, it's often the roots that do make the tree as much as you're shaping. Apart from a little trimming around there, it's not a bad little start for the root structure, but pay attention to it. Don't just cut it off. Have a look at what you've got there, because that is going to be the development of your little tree. And you usually have a lot more flexibility in the ends. Where would I cut this? Okay. I'm certainly not going to leave all that, that's for sure. I might start with there and bring up a new leader here. Or you could even go down to here, or if you're really serious, you could take it down to there. It wouldn't hurt to take all of that off and start a new leader here. That way you get the thickening and you get more taper as you go up. The more you leave, the less taper you're going to get. You'll get more if you just keep lowering it and lowering it each year. And then just wire up the new leader. Oh, I'm so tempted. Okay.
What brand of surgery did you practice prior to being?
Good question. Yeah. No, I just know it works. You know, I can't say why I do that, but I do. I just don't. It mightn't look as good as that, but it will when it grows. Because it's been dealt with so harshly, it'll shoot from everywhere. Okay, so you get more choice. There are so many shooting areas on a Chinese elm. It just shoots from everywhere. So, you know, don't be afraid to take it right back. The best Chinese elm I've got, I can remember, it was actually when we went to Melbourne, and they grew so fast, I couldn't keep up with this one, and I didn't get it wired. I was working at the time too, and we were renovating. We destroyed half of the house and we were renovating. And I didn't get it done. And the next time I had about 4 or 5 of them. The next time I looked at it, I didn't like the trunk at all. I did not like it, and I thought, I can't go on with it like that. But I did like the roots. So, I swear, I cut it off there. And the trunk was that thick. Looks fantastic today. I didn't bring it. I mean, I can't bring everything. But it's got this flare and thick nabari, and it just tapers right up. I just thought, well, I don't like it the way it is, and surely with the root system it's got, it'll grow. So off it went, and I cut it where I could see I wanted the branches to lean when they came, and they did. They did exactly what I thought they would do, which is not what natives do.
How long did they take to shoot off again after you cut it?
Oh, that season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just took off. And I just thought, great, you know, but the problem was I had so many shoots, I don't know which to choose. So I just let them go until my eye could see one that was going to create the nabari that I'd wanted. So all the others came off. That one got wired, cut paste all round, nice clean finish on the wounds, and away it went. And I've still got it today, and it's lovely. That was a long time ago I did that. So this is not dramatic. Really, it's not. So that's what you would do with that one. Same mix. Again, I do put a touch of Osmocote in my mix, only a touch, I don't overdo it, just in case that it feels like putting out some new roots, or, I don't know, it doesn't hurt, put it that way, it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of Osmocote in there to get it going. So with this one, yeah, look, we're going to put a lean in that. We can get that moving a bit more than that. That's better. Now that's probably about 3, I think. Heavens are losing the tools and getting covered in dirt. All right. Now seeing as I've pulled all the soil away, I'm going to have to just go between the roots. That feels reasonably firm. Again, hold tight. And if you feel very brave, when you're coming around, you can actually encourage it a little bit. Because remember, they're tough little things. Support it.
What do you do if it breaks?
Yes.
Paste on it and hope for the best?
Not on the, no, look, sometimes, you know, if it's probably only just a little bit of a crack on a third, maybe. But if I've got to potentially wire it a lot more, nah, I just have to cut it back there and hope for the best. Just try and feel each position, hold it with the wire. This is a pretty thick one to try and bend. I think that it's resisting a lot. But even the smallest bit of movement will look better than straight. If I can just get that around a little bit more. That's when it usually goes crack. Okay. It's just enough. And even sometimes, if that's enough for today, come back in 5 days or so, give it another little tweak when it's got used to that. Okay, but that's enough. Probably minimal bending, but it just softens it just a little bit more, particularly, you know, with the root system that's there. I wouldn't bother wiring that at this stage. Let's see what it produces in the spring. And probably not even wire it in the spring, maybe wire it in the March, depending, okay? You want to see a little bit stronger than that. Like I wouldn't wire these. These are still too soft, but it certainly will have a cutback. These have all been wired down here. What would they be? 1, 2, 3 millimetres. They can take wire, but this is too soft and not necessary. You'll be able to get a lot of movement into in 3 or 4 millimetres in this particular variety. It's very easy to bend. As you can see here, even without holding it, there's very little restriction. So, you know, you can have a lot of fun with that. And not so with this one, okay? So what we need is some soil underneath there. So sort of hold it. Don't expose your roots too soon. If you know they're there, just leave them, you know, to grow and develop under a bit of mixture. If you expose particularly the soft roots of an elm like this, and you get a hot summer, you're going to burn them. And and they'll peel. So, you know, just be a bit slow in bringing your roots out. Okay. All right. I've talked about the wedge bending. Has anyone done wedge bending? Yes? Successful? Yeah, it's very successful, isn't it? I think that a lot of the time we think, oh, you take a wedge out like that. No, you don't. You only take that much out, okay? It takes quite a bit of movement to bring that right down, and you'd be amazed how just a little wedge like that can bring a branch right down. So if you've got something that you're not happy with, but you do like the branch, and you just would like it further down or further up or whatever, most of the time down, try doing the wedge. You'll cut through about 2/3 of the branch and just tweezer that wedge out and just gently start pushing it. And the wedge is done from underneath. And watch the top as you're bringing it together. Most times it will give quite easily. I've never had a problem. I've done it on a witch hazel, on a very thick branch, and that was very successful too. The reason it's all strapped and wrapped is I just don't want it to dry out too quickly. It's only got a bit of raffia under there, just basically to stop the weather getting at it too much, drying it out or making it too wet or anything. So that will stay like that, probably for a year before I'll undo it and just see, you know, if everything's going okay. The proof will be in the shooting and how vigorous this is down here. But I'm pretty confident that it'll be okay. So that's another consideration if you've got a branch that you want to move, but there isn't any way of moving it. You know, just try a wedge. And I think you'll be surprised, you know, how well it goes. As I said before, I leave all the foliage on my natives through winter. I have in the past cut them all back, because when it does have a prune, it goes right back to 2 leaves on every branch. It goes back as far as I can possibly prune. This one here, for instance, will go back to that set of 2 small leaves there. So it gets quite a haircut. But that will happen on this one only twice through the growing season. On the river red gums and some of the snow gums, it'll happen 3 times throughout the growing season. And that also produces the ramification that you need. With the gums, you're going to end up with something that's, if you don't prune hard, you're just going to end up with something out here. You know, you've got to come back hard. And if you look at gums in the wild, you know, they go through a hell of a lot. They get eaten and they get storm damage and everything, and they just regrow. So don't be afraid to prune them back really hard. They like it. This Acacia, I know a lot of people cut the needles very short, but what I'm going to try and do is get the ramification going, but allow it to droop like it does in its natural state. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be successful, I don't know, but that's what I'm heading for. It's just trial and error, and I guess that's how I've done most of my bonsai, through trial and error. When I first started doing it, I didn't have anyone to go to, and I didn't have any clubs, and I just started reading a lot of books. Every book I could get, I'd go to every library, every second-hand bookshop, the op shop, everywhere, and I just picked up everything that I could find and read and read and read. I didn't have a computer at the time, so I didn't have online stuff or anything like that. And I guess I just kept trying things, you know, and if you buy tube stock, you can afford to try, you know. Today I think they're about $3.80 a tube stock. It's not a big loss when it's going to teach you a lot, because you do learn as you go along with the stock. Any questions?
In the growing pots, Annalea, my assumption is that it would be a much more intense care process. Is that right?
Compared to?
Oh, compared to when the tree's in a pot, only because of the increased amount of airflow, and you talked about having a much more loose soil mix and airflow, and so my assumption is that it might mean that it needs to be watered more frequently, and so it needs like a little bit more attention. Is that a logical conclusion?
In some cases, but if you've got it in the right mix, it doesn't need a lot more watering than others. Some trees just need more water.
Yeah.
Melaleucas, for instance, they are just water hungry. They can't get enough water. It doesn't matter how many times you water them through the growing season, they always want more. But at the same time, even if they dry out and they droop, they come back very quickly. So again, you know, they're not going to be lost, even if they are going through it a bit tough for a spell. They will come back. You know, you won't lose them. But generally, the grower pots, they probably need that more attention, like you've got to check. You've got to do a daily check. You know, that's for sure. You can't just think, oh, well, I'll go back in 3 days and check them out. No, that won't work. So a daily check is necessary. And when I do a daily check, I get to know the weight of my pots. That's how I check. I don't put my fingers in or anything like that. I know every pot and what it should weigh when it's fully watered. And it's not hard. I mean, you're watering this one, you just do that. And if you do that every day, it's like anything. You'll get to know when that's dried out twice as fast as it did, say, yesterday. So it's just a habit that you develop when you're growing them, and particularly the young ones. Yeah.
How do you go on holidays?
Well, we didn't for 20 years, but that didn't matter because we had a farm anyway, and we had dairy goats, and we had red deer, and we had cattle. So we didn't go on holidays, but you've just got to find someone who is truly reliable, not your brother or your cousin
Or your neighbour.
or your neighbour. You've got to find someone who knows a bit about plants and be willing to pay them, okay? Because then they'll take the responsibility. We were fortunate, you know, before COVID, for a couple of years there, we found someone we could absolutely trust. And that's the way to get away. But look, it's like everything, you know, if you go and become a dairy farmer, you know the commitment before you walk into it, you know, and bonsai is no different. You know, you're either committed or you're not, you know, and if bonsai has got into your blood, you're committed, believe me. I've already started planning my funeral. This is not sombre or anything, but I've actually decided I want some bonsai on my coffin, you know.
In your coffin?
Yeah, because they're a big part and have been a big part of my life. I've demoted, and Quentin's the same.
It would fit in his coffin.
Well, around the coffin. There'd been a commitment, you know, for 30 or more years. You know, and how much more committed can you get to something? Every day, 24/7, you know. I mean, if it's a hailstorm, you rush out there and you're moving things and you're getting hit by hail. I've been out in hail that's actually just opened me up everywhere to save a few bonsai, you know. It is a commitment. All right, so you don't go on holidays. is it a big deal, really? Is it? You know? It's, if you're happy doing what you're doing, and it's giving you great pleasure, and it's a real therapy, it's a real out, surely that's enough payment, you know? But if you can find someone reliable, you can go on your holidays, you know? It's just that when I was working, I used to dread February. I'd absolutely dread it, because in they'd come. We went on holidays and my brother promised that he would water them every day. You know, if I heard it once, I heard it hundreds of times in February. Or, you know, they got a plant for Christmas, got no idea about bonsai. Someone decided to give them a bonsai because they'd seen, you know, Mr. Megami with it, and they bring it in and it's completely stone dead. Oh, but you know, can't you do something with it? I just said, look, I haven't got a magic wand. It is dead, it hasn't been watered. Oh, the lady told me to just spray it. I mean, you've all heard these stories, haven't you? And I actually had one woman say to me, do they need water? I heard it all, really, you know. So it's about just having somebody you can truly trust, who knows the deal, and is going to look after it, because you put all that time and effort in. Is your holiday worth it if you come back and find more than half of them dead? Yes?
Yeah, you were saying where you live, the mornings get really cold. Well, my parents are up out of the end, and even on a 30+ degrees day, the mornings can be absolutely freezing. How do you deal with such a fluctuation in temperatures like in summer and things like that?
Okay. Well, look, some plants just really, it's tough, you know, and some it affects very badly. I have to deal with extremely hot summers, and I know that even under 50% shade cloth, I cannot stop Japanese maple leaves from burning. And I've actually put them under 75 and they still burn more. And even the Mugo pines and the pines, once it gets up to 40, 42, I put shade cloth over them for that very hot part of the day. But at the end of summer, all the tips on the top are burnt because they all poke through the shade cloth. And yet you can't put pines under shade cloth. You can only, you know, they need the sun. They need the sun and the air and everything. They need, you know, really almost tough conditions. But the intensity of the sun we have now, when it gets up to 42, 43, virtually takes care of everything. I work under 50% shade cloth for a lot of the plants, not the natives. They never go under the shade cloth. Best case scenario, if the pot's getting too hot, is to cut a square of shade cloth and put it over the pot and the surface of the pot with probably sphagnum moss under there and the shade cloth over pegged so that you've got a big apron over it. You can water through it. The blackbirds can't pull all of the sphagnum moss off, and that will help cool and keep the dampness there. If you can keep those roots from frying and keep that moisture level up, it'll be minimal damage. And you've got to choose your species, you know, there's just no way around it. It's like in the tropics, you know, they struggle to grow the pines and the junipers. They love them, but the grass is always greener on the other side.
So for someone not much experience, would you, like if you could have two separate areas, obviously you'd have one area with your maples quite covered and then the pines would be a lot more open?
Yes, definitely. Yep, definitely. And at the moment, my shaded area is almost vacant except for azaleas. Everything else is out in the sun, even if it means makeshift. Where I live, there's huge red gums everywhere, so finding enough sun in the wintertime is difficult. And I'll just put makeshift benches up in the sunniest spots and get all the natives and everything out there. and all the deciduous plants out there. And then bring everything else into the permanent area of sun. So the shaded area is almost vacant at the moment, and that would be 2/3 of the bonsai area.
So with, say, maples in winter, then you'd probably better to have shade cloth where you can retract it and bring it.
Oh, definitely. You know, we talked to Quentin about that. He's got the best setup of all time. You know, he just draws the shade cloth across. You know, I've got to struggle with my husband. You know, he'll be 82 this year, and getting up on a ladder is not the best thing on earth for him at the moment. But we've got to do the heave-ho sort of thing. You know, we haven't set up anything that's, you know, so easy to pull the shade cloth across. But yeah, if you had marine cables, is that what you've got? Yeah. And, you know, on the hottest of days, you just pull, don't you?
Yeah, just cover it up on a hot day and pull it back.
And then just pull it back the next day. So definitely worth the investment. When I set up this place where we are now, I did the best that I could at the time. But if I had time over again, I would definitely do it like Quentin's. Labour saving, plant saving, yeah, definitely works.
After a little bit of osmocote in your potting mix, what do you do for fertiliser after that?
Oh, okay. Well, I do a mixture of fertilisers. I'll do, I've got little fertiliser pots, and sometimes I'll use those with sea mungus in them, which is just a compost, a very old compost, and seaweed, and I think there's a bit of fish stuff in there as well. And that will go on the evergreens, or the broadleaves, throughout winter time. So it's a very slow release of a natural organic fertiliser. Osmocote I'll probably only use half of the time. I'll do a power feed and sea salt throughout the growing season, because I think power feed's better to keep for the growing season. You know, it really sort of chuffs them along pretty fast. And the other one that I use is an Amgro product, organic all-purpose fertiliser. And there's also a native one, I think it's by, I don't know whether it's by Nutrog or Amgro. It's a native organic fertiliser just sprinkled around the pots. So I'm looking at very, very light through the winter time, not really much at all really. Probably just a little bit of seaweed in that. The eucalypts, I think the last one that I fed them was just power feed and sea salt through probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I probably won't give them anything else now until spring. It's just wasted, you know. They're still growing a little bit. You can see, you know, they're still putting out these tips. They weren't there a few weeks ago, those new little sprouts, but they're there now. I don't want to push it too much because of our winter temperatures are a bit cold. So there's no need, you know, there's no need to do it. But come spring, when the natives take off particularly fast, I'll up the feed then. So it's sort of, it goes with the growth phases, the feeding. But I use a variety of feeds. I use a variety of dry feeding and a variety of liquid feeding, but more on the less side than more. Any other questions anywhere? No? Does anyone want to see anything else done or talk about anything else?
I just wanted to ask, when you said you didn't like that tree and you cut it right down, was that like a young tree or an older tree?
Oh,
That's another one that you didn't like.
it was a few years old.
Was it?
Yes, it already had a base about that big.
Okay.
And where I cut would have been about that big.
Okay.
And it was just a stub sitting in the pot. I didn't touch the roots, I just left it. I just cut it, sealed it all, made sure that it, you know, that I used a very sharp knife to trim the cambium up so it was as neat as I could get it. And I didn't touch the roots until I saw the growth coming, and then I fed it. And once the stems were up, you know, something like this, I took it out of the pot and repotted it. And I actually brought the pot size right down to marry with the amount of growth.
Okay, give me an idea then.
Yeah, don't be afraid to try. Okay, all right, thank you very much for listening.